Hey, badass business owners, welcome to another episode of the Local Small Business Coach Podcast, where each episode we work on getting you to $100,000 in take-home pay. So if you're all ready to boost your profits, increase your sales, improve your processes, and develop stronger teams so you can stop living job to job, then let's dive in. Hey, badass business owners, welcome back to the show. Today I want to continue on with our Thursday lessons on our numbers and our business numbers. And the video that I've been releasing this week and we're going to talk about on today's show has to do with calculating our gross margin and why we need to know our gross margin. Now, of all the calculations that are out there and all the different numbers that are going on, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier a few weeks ago when I was talking about markup versus gross margin. But I want to come back and I want to take a little bit more time to dive into this whole gross margin percentage because it really is the one of the best numbers for you to know for your business. It's actually going to have one of the biggest impacts altogether when it comes to you understanding how much money you're going to make. Because honestly, if you don't know what your gross margin is for your overall business, as well as for each individual product, you're really starting at a disadvantage because you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants and you're waking up at the end of the month not even knowing how you got there. And a lot of times what happens is this is probably one of the biggest numbers. People think, oh, this is such a pain in the keister. I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to go through and figure this out. But I'm telling you, it is the number one thing that you could do. If you do nothing else but dive in and understand what it is that you make off of every product or service that you offer and how it rolls into your overall thing, into your overall business, then you're going to have a leg up and it's actually going to spark you wanting to dive in and learn even more. So first off, the thing is, what is this whole gross margin thing? There's a lot of different ways that you hear people talk about margins. You're going to hear people talk about gross margins. You're going to hear them say about profit margins. They're going to talk about net profit. There's so many different things. Basically, your gross margin is before you do anything else, it is the amount of profit that you make off of your product from the time you sell it and minus what you take to make it. So your gross margins is everything before your expenses and before everything else. So if you think about it, it's what you sell it for minus what it costs for you to make it or produce it or to deliver it, if you will. So it is the very first number that talks about the profits in your business. Now, for example, I'm going to use even numbers because it's the easiest way to introduce people to it. Is let's just say you sell something for $100 and you sell it for $100 and the costs to make it are $25 to make it. Okay. So your $100 sales, $25 costs of goods, COGS, as you sometimes will see them, but your costs of goods. So if we know that it's $100 that you sell it for and your COGS, your costs of goods to produce it or deliver it, is $25, that means you're making $75 in profit. And that's kind of where from there is where you're going to pay the rest of your business and everything else. What we call that is you have a 75% gross margin. Now, it's easy to do on $100 because you just have that percentage difference between them. But in most cases, that's not how most of your businesses are. Very few things are sold at an even number. So it's important you understand how that calculation is actually done. Let's say, for example, that you sell a product or a service for $75 and those costs of goods are $30. And now your gross profit is $45. Well, your gross margin isn't as simple to figure out now because it's not based off of 100, it's based off of the 75. And your gross margin actually ends up being 60%. Basically, 60 cents out of each dollar is potential profit. But the question that becomes is, how did we even figure out the whole darn 60% in the first place? But the important part to think about is the fact that the reason that number is important is because even though you have a $75, that 60% is basically saying 60 cents out of every dollar that you make is going to be used towards your profit line. So hopefully that doesn't sound too confusing, but the main thing is, how did we get to the 60%? So this is where it comes in, because if you think about it, everything, we talked about this, was it last week? I think we did the P&L, your profit and loss statement is all based off of percentages, right? And those percentages are all based off of your sales, your initial sales. And if you recall on your profit and loss statement, you had top line was your sales revenue, and then the second line was your cost of goods sold, and then you figured out your initial gross margin. So you might recall, if you've been through the P&L piece, that was the starting point, right? It was your gross profit. So we're going to do the same thing. You're going to take that gross profit and divide it by those sales. So using this particular example where we came out to the 60%, it was going to be profit was $45 because we had $75 sales minus the cost of goods of $30, left a profit of $45. And you're going to divide that now by the sales. So in this case, it's $45 divided by the $75 is going to give us that 60%. So think about a product or service in your business. If you're listening right now, you may have to do this in your head until you can get in front of a computer. So I definitely recommend that you come back through later and either do it through the video or through the podcast. But I want you to start figuring this out for your business and for your individual products. Is take the profit that you make on that product and divide it by the total sales, and you're going to get that percentage. So in this case, the 60% tells us that before we do anything else in the business, 60 cents of every dollar is going to be set aside to be able to go back into expenses and everything else and into the final numbers that go into our own pockets in what we pay ourselves. Now, the other reason that it's important that we look at this is I'm going to give you guys a challenge. I really want you to do it two ways. I want you to do it for your total business. So you can do it by the month, you can do it by the year. You need to do it all different ways. You're going to learn all kinds of different stuff. But if you need to know what your overall company's is. So for example, if you were to take last year's sales or even year to date this year, add up all of your sales, and add up all your sales, make that one number. 2, take all of your costs of goods, add all of that up, and come up with that number. Subtract the 2, so take your cost of goods from your total sales. That's going to give you your initial gross profit before you do everything else in your business. Then take that number, the gross profit number, and divide it by your sales. That's going to give you your company's total gross margin percentage. Now, here's where it's interesting, because if you also take it by each individual product or service that you sell, you're going to get different numbers. So let's just say your total company is at 55%, okay? So your total company is at 55%. And then you take the each individual product and you can start seeing they're all not going to be the same 50%. They're going to be all kinds of different numbers, or 55%. They're not all going to be 55%. Some will be 60%, some will be 45%. They'll be all over the board. But by knowing what the total company's goal is and seeing each individual one, what you're going to be able to do is say, hey, this particular product or service pulls that number down. This particular product or service pulls it up. And then you can start asking yourself, am I priced right? Because if your target is 55% and yet one of your best sellers is 45%, you can see that 45% is pulling you down, in which case you have to make a decision. Either you're going to pull your business slowly down, or you need to find ways to reduce those costs of goods or raise the price so that you can get that gross margin up on that particular product or service. So you can see how the numbers, once you start finding them out, can actually start helping you figure out how to raise that profit line, that initial profit line before your expenses. Because the best way to move that number is, let's go back to that individual number for that individual product. Okay, earlier we said we sold it for $75 and the cost of goods, what number was I using? The cost of goods was $30, right? And that gave us the $45. If we wanted to make a higher gross margin, we knew we either had to sell it for more than the $75, or we needed to get those costs of goods down from $30 even lower. So the best way to increase that profit and increase that profit margin is either get more sales or decrease the cost of goods sold. Hopefully that's making some sense. I know it's difficult listening to it in audio format, but that's the main thing that you want to try to do is play with these numbers, because the more you can give yourself that initial foot up with the best gross margin possible, before you start taking off your expenses and everything else, the more likely you're going to be able to put more money in your pocket and make more money overall. So that's your challenge. There will be a link in the show notes to the video for this. So it kind of walks you down and you can kind of see the calculation done. But the real impact of this is for you to go through and to take each of your total company and then do each of the products and services that you offer. You can do it on a notepad. I recommend doing it in a spreadsheet. One of the things that I'm going to do, because I'm going to be building this course for Know Your Business Numbers, I'm actually going to put together a spreadsheet that's going to help people out so that you just plug in some numbers and it'll automatically calculate it out. And I'll probably end up making that for everybody. I just haven't done it yet. But just go in and start to, just so it's a good practice for you to do it yourself so you can get familiar with the math problem. And I'm telling you, even if you're not a big math fan, it's really easy. You just take the difference. Sales minus your cost of goods is going to give you your gross profit. Take that gross profit and divide it by the sales. That's all you're doing is taking the difference, the profit divided by the sales, and that's going to give you your gross margin. It's actually really easy. Everybody can do it. Do it with a calculator. I'm not even going to make you have to do it with a straight pencil. Get a calculator out, use the one on your phone, and start figuring out what your gross margin is on every product and service that you do, and then compare it to what it is you do as a company. And I think you're going to start seeing your eyes open and go, wow, I didn't even realize that. If you are the type of person who does bids on jobs, go take the last 10 jobs that you did and look at the difference and see how it compared to overall what it is that you made in the company. I think you'll be surprised and start seeing the numbers and seeing that difference. So it's all fun. Gross margin is a very powerful percentage for you to know how to calculate out at any given point in time. And you can do it right there when you're talking to people and figure out what that gross margin is. Because eventually, for example, let's just say you know that your expenses are a certain percentage, that your expenses are running, say, 10%, then you know that if you have a gross margin of 60% on a product, you know 10% of that's going away from expenses and everything else, which is going to leave you the other 50. So just having the number as an initial thing, even though it's not going to be perfect, but it allows you to be able to do calculations on the fly in the field or as you do different things to see if it's going to be profitable for you or not. So hopefully that makes some sense. And if you have any questions or you get confused on this, feel free to reach out to me. Several of you guys have been reaching out to me for some information or just to bounce some stuff off of me. Once again, you can always do it at Tammy@localsmallbusinesscoach.com. Tammy@localsmallbusinesscoach.com. I do try to answer you within about 24 hours. Sometimes it depends on how crazy my day is, but I do try to get back to everybody. And I can do that at this time, so it works out. Who knows what the future has to hold, but I am going to continue to work on these YouTube videos. It sounds like everybody's really enjoying them and learning a lot from them. And then, like I said, I'm going to turn this into a course where I can really deep dive even more into it. And I'm going to start working on that. So hopefully I'll have that done here in the next month or two so I can get that for you guys as well. All right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Go play around. Go look at your gross margin and start opening your eyes. You don't have to be a pro right away. It's just going to take some practice, but the important thing is you start adding more knowledge into your tool belt. I don't even know where that came from. You start adding more knowledge into your tool belt, and that just makes you an even better, stronger business owner. And that's why you are the badass that you are. With that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I will talk to you on the next episode. Bye for now. Hey, badass business owner, if you're interested in taking your knowledge to the next level on understanding the numbers of your business, then head on over to knowyourbusinessnumberscourse.com and sign up to be one of the first to get any new items I put together to help you take your skills to the next level. Not only will you get immediate access to any new videos I create, but you'll also get copied on any tools I create to help you get better at understanding your business numbers. Plus, get any updates on the upcoming course, Know Your Business Numbers, where I will be taking a much deeper dive into the numbers that will help you become the badass business owner I know you are. So once again, if you want to keep building the skill, building this business muscle, check out the link in the show notes and head on over to knowyourbusinessnumberscourse.com and sign up now. Don't you think it's time to use your business numbers to earn more profits?